Welcome to the Movie Madhouse. I'm Rob.
I'm James.
I'm Jason.
And our good buddy,
Benner from Black Phone Distro, man. Hey, I'm back again.
Yeah.
the fourth member of the Movie Madhouse.
Yeah, we were just joking before we got on the air. Apparently, yeah, sorry about that, guys. Sorry to your audience as well. You're stuck with me for another episode, I guess. But, yeah.
Dude, it's always a blast having you on, especially with today's topic. Prey and the Predator franchise.
Oh, this goes deep. This goes deep.
Awesome. I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped.
Let me start out. Okay, I'll ask you guys here. What did you expect going into it, and did it meet it?
For me, I honestly didn't have an expectation because of the buzz around it, particularly with the Comanche language and stuff. Like, I didn't have an expectation. I didn't think it was going to be like a deep Predator movie.
Okay.
And so I think it kind of went where I expected it to go, honestly, now that I really think about it. I think I was not expecting it to be a full-on Predator movie because it's a straight-up Disney thing. So I took that into consideration, and it delivered.
We'll bring up a point for this. I want to find out about that. James, what are your thoughts?
Understanding that none of these movies are realistic, I didn't find it before watching it. I didn't expect it to be realistic that this girl could survive against a predator, and they made me believe that she could because, well, I won't say. They made me believe that because reasons be that she could survive against a predator, and it's when you see it, you understand. And
we'll throw this out there now because we're going to try, but maybe.
Oh no, yeah, just keep it going, keep it going. Yeah. Maybe just click it randomly once in a while.
Spoiler alert.
It's by far far from one of my favorite of the Predator movies, but I would put it above my memory, because I only saw it once. I would put it above my memory of Predator 2, but below the rest.
Ooh.
I can't rank. That's just not gonna happen.
The guy who plays the Predator is also a lot smaller than the other ones. So
there's reasons.
His name's Dalton.
No, well, there's reasons because it's a different human being. But I mean,
but beyond that, there's reasons.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Age. This is a past form of the predators that we know. They have not evolved to be the bigger hulking size.
That's right. Everybody in the 15th century was only 4'3". Now look at us. Right?
Now we're 4'5".
Exactly.
Well, I'm not talking about the big super predator from the Predator. I just mean like Kevin Peter Hall or the dudes who played it after Kevin Peter Hall.
Right. They predators. But the
guy
evolved to be bigger.
I mean, the guy was big. The guy was ripped. It's just he didn't seem to be as hulky.
I'm gonna let you know a secret. That wasn't what he looked like. Those little face mandibles weren't his.
Way to shatter my illusion.
Right? Better. What did you think going in? And were you?
Yeah. So I was. I didn't want to see this movie. Like I had no interest in seeing it when it was first announced. Not for any other reason other than this franchise it just can't get it right for some reason. Even though I think it's had some pretty good installments, it's always working against itself. I think that anytime it really has an ability to kind of shine, it's hampered by the studio and whoever's working it. Also, as well, the fact that it was just going to be a streaming movie. And that the fact that it was going to be part of the Disney pie, I wasn't very enthused by it. I also hated the Predator. So like the last installment, Not that guy. No, but
the
not
Predator.
so. Just to be clear, I hated the Predator, the movie, which was the fourth movie in the series. We're not counting Alien versus Predator right now, and also as well the Predator, like Predator 1, the one with Arnold, is like one of my all-time favorite movies. I've probably seen the movie like 100 times. It's insanely quotable. It's just an awesome flick. Obviously, I think if you like action movies, if you like sci-fi movies, and you like horror movies, probably that one's on your list at somewhere. It's probably in a lot of people's top 50, maybe top 100 for sure, and maybe even top 10. But like, I just love like sci-fi horror or sci-fi action horror. To me, is like one of my favorite genres. It's just unfortunate that there's only a few movies in that genre that really kind of stand the test of time. Predator being one of them. But so I wasn't really interested in seeing this movie at all. I thought, okay, that's an interesting idea. You're calling it Prey. So that's neat and whatever. But also at the same time, I was like, I'm going to watch it because it's going to be on Disney Plus. It's on Hulu in the States, I believe, which is part of the Disney family, but Disney Plus in Canada. So I was like, whatever, I got the subscription. I'll watch it eventually. And then all the reviews started coming out and all the buzz started happening about it, saying, it was the best Predator movie since the first one. I would disagree with that, but still, I gave it a watch and I was actually pleasantly surprised. And I thought it did a lot of things. I think it did more things right than it did wrong. And the things that they did wrong, I don't think were the things I was least expecting them to get wrong. And they got a lot of stuff right. And I thought that it was, well, we'll get into it. But like just going into the film, like I didn't really have any expectations. My expectations, I think, were sky high for the last film, like The Predator that Shane Black directed, because I love Shane Black as a director. Exactly. He's obviously in the first Predator movie. I thought it would be a really kind of return to form. And I actually liked Predators, which was the one that Robert Rodriguez produced, and I can't remember the director's name. Yes, thank you. Who did the Metallica Through the Never movie, which was actually pretty good too. And I really do like Predator 2. I think Predator 2 is pretty awesome. I actually went back and rewatched it before this podcast, and most of it at least. Kind of ran out of some time at a time, but for the most part, that movie's actually aged really, really well, because it's just so batshit crazy, and it's a film that like you would wish that they would make now, but they didn't. It's just kind of one of those flicks that was kind of made in the last, like the tail end of the '80s, so it carried over all the '80s awesomeness. But
you guys see the Stranger Things connection?
Yes. I was going to bring that up later.
Yeah?
No, I haven't. Let's talk about that later. I haven't heard that yet. No, but like
get into deeper into the franchise, I'll bring it up.
All right. Nathan says, fellows, I'd like to hang around for this one, but I haven't seen Prey yet.
Fair.
Okay.
I mean, check it out. I mean, it's worth checking out. I mean, and it's interesting that it's a streaming movie. I don't know. I don't know how it would have done if it was. I don't know if that influenced people's perception of the film that was on streaming. I think it influenced mine going in. But at the same time, like I think I might have been even more surprised had I seen the film in a theater. But also as well, I kind of feel like I might not have even gone to see it in the theater, depending. But the reviews were really good, and I'm not saying that you should watch a movie based on reviews. But sometimes when reviews are like 20% or 25%, like kind of what you're going to get going in. So I was actually surprised that so many people were positive about it, and that got me to watch it right away, or sooner than I probably would have before. So I mean, it was that's kind of how I went going in. I love the franchise. It's like the Alien franchise. It's like amazing. I love it. It's so iconic. It's such an awesome idea, and they just like great movies in the franchise are like few and far between.
Gotcha. Well, Greg says, "Hey everyone, did you know that The Predator is loosely based on James' obsession with Colin Farrell?" Is that how that started?
Hi, Greg.
Well, see, the funny thing is, I completely forgot about this film until the day it dropped, and Dr. Steve was here with me, and we were chit-chatting. He goes, "Yeah, let's watch Prey." It's like, I don't even know what that is. So we turned it on and got going. It's like, oh, I remember hearing about this. So I had no preconceptions going into it, And I was very surprised with what they did. To me, there's only one historical inaccuracy, and everything else I love. So
what's the one?
The gun?
No, it's the fact that they would even let a woman go out and try to be brave. sorry, back in 17th or 1700s, in Indian culture, that would have been shut down. There wouldn't have been the fringe. Let her go out with the boys and do that. But other than that, the way they handled that character was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that, yeah, I know what you're saying, Rob. Like, I mean, if you look through it as like through a 2020 or 21st century lens, like how would that look through an 18th century actuality? Like, and I actually don't know. I mean, I would harbor, if I had to bet on it, I would go with what you're saying. But I don't know. Like, I mean,
the whole movie would have been that beatdown that she got, that one 3-minute beatdown that the boys did before they took off. That would have been the whole movie. Trying to keep her in camp.
But
yeah,
remember, we are talking about a world where the predator exists.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that well, I mean, I think that like just from that point of view, I think that a lot of how do I say this? So a lot of notions in film or notions about either Native Americans or Indigenous people or anything like that in movies have been not represented great. Yes. And I think and in the complete opposite of that and sort of saying, well, it's kind of like, although that's historically accurate, and which we know now that it's not. So I think that having the liberties in the story going the other way, I think I'm okay with that, because I think that at least they were like, hey, let's, and I know that's, you're not pushing back against that, Rob, just to be clear for sure. But I agree. Like, I think that it's one of those things that I was willing to say, you know what? Well, maybe in this particular community and this particular tribe or whatever, maybe something like that could happen. I also think that going back to sort of the expectations of the film, like, and this is kind of, it's not really, I don't want it to seem like a criticism. I guess it'll come across like that, but I could tell that they were using a limited budget. I think they had a kind of a decent script, and they said, we want to make this movie. It's going to be part of the Predator franchise. You guys can just put it on streaming. And I think that's kind of how they got this budget approved and the film off the ground. So you can't really, and I don't want to criticize it too much, because it's like, if they really push to say, we need to do theatrical, it needs to be called something else or whatever. Maybe the film doesn't even get made in the first place. So they were kind of tied to the budget of what they could really do. But story-wise, I think it's a pretty bare basic story, but that's okay, because the first movie was kind of bare basic story, and I think that works the best. I think there's just too much in some of the other films. It just gets too convoluted, especially I know we're not really going to talk about them, but the Alien versus Predator movies is like, it's especially convoluted for no reason at all. But this one was really just like, what if this happened, and how would it play out? I thought it was pretty entertaining.
Yeah. In regards to, girl power, this didn't feel ham-fisted. This didn't feel like a call to arms. Oh. This was just a well-presented story.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm glad they chose her as the antagonist, because it made that movie better.
Mm-hmm. It's just because it can get overdone, and then now you're alienating an audience, because that's why I left Supergirl. It was just too much.
Yeah.
So I can see where it can be heavy-handed, and this was not in any way.
Oh, trust me, I would have taken that same liberty writing this same script. I would have, because it makes the story that much better.
I can't wait for Eden to be old enough to be able to watch Prey, because I think she's gonna dig it.
Oh yeah. Now Adam brings up a point. Adam Jacket says, "Does direct-to-streaming have the same stigma as direct-to-video?"
Not for years.
Is it?
I'm going to say 60% yes, 40% no.
I'd say it's
there is some gold out there, right? Stranger Things alone.
Well, no. And see, that's a streaming series.
Oh, you're talking movie, just strictly for movies.
Yeah, like this movie, like Benner said, it came out. It's not going to the theater, so it can't be that good.
Like Zack Snyder's doing direct-to-streaming movies. Michael Bay's doing direct-to-streaming movies. Fincher's doing direct-to-streaming movies. Yeah. Soderbergh has been doing it for years now.
I would say I'm going to stand with that number, about 60-40. There are some good films that have come direct to streaming, And even if they were in theater, they would have played well.
Well, it's not necessarily when you say like the quality of the movies. I think when they say the stigma, it means bad news for a movie. Well, despite the quality.
I think what it means is, what's your first thought? Like, you hear praise coming out, oh, it's going to be streaming. Oh.
Yeah.
Not anymore for me. I mean, direct to video, DVD or VHS back in the day, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's different. I think
Boondock Saints.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make the call for that. I mean, I think there is a correlation between films, and let's leave series out of there, because series, I think, it's a different animal. But yeah, I do feel, and there's a whole different conversation, because I think that sometimes shows on streaming networks or streaming platforms really, really work, i.e. Stranger Things, and sometimes they really, really don't. But we'll get to that in another episode probably later on. But I think basically, like, there is a correlation between that, just saying here's a film that is, like, quote unquote maybe not good enough to go into theaters. I think there's a lot of pressure on films that go into theaters now. I think it really needs to be a home run. It needs to be a winner, and you need to make that box office back. And also as well, like, a lot of studios don't really want to invest that money into something like that, where the return could necessarily, like, the investment might not be able to be recouped. So even just the deliverables to theaters and the advertising and all that stuff, it's a lot of cash. And for those if anyone listening who doesn't necessarily know this, if you take your budget, if you're putting it into theaters, like for a wide release, let's say, your advertising budget is probably like 2 or 3 times the size of your actual budget. So if you got a $25 million movie, you're probably spending $75 million. So that's why you kind of hear, sometimes you hear studios releasing a film. They say, okay, well, the budget was $33 million and it did $43 million at the box office, and it was considered a disappointment and a failure. That's why, because they probably didn't recoup the other $60 million that they put into advertising and that sort of stuff. On the streaming front, I think you don't have to really worry about that. And a lot of studios are saying, listen, we got a streaming platform. We can throw it on here. We can do some viral advertising. We can do some advertising on social media and put like some TV spots and stuff like that. But we don't have to do billboards, and we don't have to do all this other stuff. And we'll see what happens. Netflix has been successful with that with the movies that hit. But for everyone that hits, there's a whole bunch that don't. And there's a lot of disappointments out there. So I think that the correlation between, is it just like a straight to video movie? I think that's fair. But again, I think even with straight to video movies, there's a lot of films that kind of came out that were like, oh, those films are actually pretty good. There's a gem here and there. So, yeah.
Well, Ryan made a very good point. He goes, COVID and Netflix has taken that stigma away, I think. And then Jake followed up. He goes, streaming releases can be bigger than theatrical releases now. If theatrical numbers weren't dwindling, maybe it'd be a different story.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would agree with that, but I would say it comes down to quality of the project. Yeah. Quality of the film. I mean, like, you can say that maybe theatrical doesn't necessarily mean that much anymore, which I don't know if I would agree or disagree with that. But I mean, you could look at Top Gun. We just talked about that in the last episode. Just surpassed $1.4 billion at the global box office. 6. It's number 6 now, just past Infinity War, which is pretty crazy. It's probably going to surpass Black Panther. At $700 million, like, that's what they're going for. They're going for $700 million domestic. That's what they want. I think that's pretty clear. They just did a kind of a re-release in some of the bigger theaters. But again, I mean, that's a massive hit. You know, why is it a massive hit? Because it's a pretty decent movie and people liked it. And I think that's that. Like, when you're talking about anything else, like the, like the girl power stuff and all that stuff, it's like, I don't care about any of that stuff. I think it's somewhat annoying from both sides. That, like, people get super hung up on it, and people who like really, really love it. I just want a good story. I just want a good film. I want a good character. And having said that, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. But the young actress who plays the lead in this movie, I don't have the IMDb up. I can't remember her. I don't want to mess up her name.
I'll get it up here.
But she's fantastic. Like,
yes, she was.
Really intriguing. She's just got an intriguing presence about her.
I kept thinking Summer Glau when I saw her.
Like, I really thought she was like, just interesting. She's interesting character to look at, interesting character to see what she was doing. She had a way, like, she has the dog with her. Like, I mean, just everything about her character and just even the actress in general. I don't know if it's maybe just because I haven't seen her in a lot of stuff, So maybe that's part of it, but I really got the sense that it was just an interesting. She has this aura on screen that I thought really kind of drew me in, and I was really interested to see kind of what happened to her and how she's going to face off against this predator, which is like one of the greatest villains, or bad guys or whatever you want to say, antagonists of all time in cinema history, right? So that off the hop was really interesting to me and got me right into the movie. Do you have her name there, Rob?
Amber Midthunder.
Amber Midthunder. So she's, yeah, I mean, I wish her the best. I think she killed it in this movie. And I hope she gets a lot of more roles because she can definitely handle herself. And to put her, like, to run with this franchise, like, it's a big sell. It's risky, right? Because if it doesn't work, you're back to, you're back to square one. So I did think it was a bit of a risk, but a calculated one, and I think it paid off. So
Ryan here said, I would prefer another streaming Predator story, as the last two theater sequels, thought special effects and bigger named actors would distract from weak scripts. And he said, I love Prey as a standalone. And yeah, that's what I say. It does stand by itself.
Who would you consider to be a big named actor in The Predator?
Boyd Holbrook.
Olivia Munn.
Yeah. I don't think they're
they had
big
Thomas
enough
Jane.
to be considered big name.
What's that?
Thomas Jane was in the last one. He's pretty big.
Yeah.
Keegan-Michael Key.
Yep.
Jake Busey.
Nobody.
Jake Busey.
Yeah, nobody huge, but just a bit enough to keep it bubbling. Okay, I guess.
The kid from Room.
And see, let's jump into The Predator for a minute then, because I was Team Predator in that movie, and I rewatched it yesterday. I'm not so much, because I found a whole bunch of holes and plot points I must not have noticed, or was just in awe that it was a Predator movie, that I'm now looking going, how did I let that slip? Oh my God, that makes no sense.
I don't care. I love it, warts and all.
The movie's so damn entertaining.
It's fun. Oh yeah, like, don't get me wrong, I had a blast rewatching it. But there's things going on, it's like, what? No, So
I know. I just choose not to see them.
Yeah, so I guess
I can just filter it.
So the Amber Midthunder, she's been in a lot of television stuff, which I haven't seen. So, like, to me, I mean, a lot of people will say, well, listen, she's been in a bunch of stuff, you should know this. But I haven't seen her in a lot of stuff, but she was in Hell or High Water. I think that's where I recognize her from, because she doesn't. It's not like I didn't know who she was. I was like, I recognize her from somewhere. I just can't remember. So I'm just looking right now. I think Hell or High Water is where I recognize her from, but I haven't seen her in a lot of other stuff.
She was in Legion too.
I didn't watch. Wait, movie or TV show? I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. So and just I would say, like, she reminded me of or just the same like the same thought I had was when I saw Anya Taylor-Joy in the first couple of films she did. When she did Split and she did The Witch and she did, like, she's just an interesting person to have on screen. And
Morgan.
And I think well, yeah, I mean, I haven't seen. Was that a movie? I haven't seen that.
That was a movie. It was directed by, I believe it was directed by one of the Scott sons. It was
okay, gotcha.
Scott's son or Tony Scott's son. But Anya Taylor-Joy was like a synthetic, artificial human being that they created. And
oh, I think I do.
Whether or
remember
not she
that.
was good or bad or whatever like that.
Wait. Yeah, that's ringing a bell.
Yeah, that was one that on its opening weekend, on the opening Saturday at the theater, it had one person.
It was me.
And I mean, and that's the thing. It's like I feel like having actors or actresses on screen, having that kind of an interesting look is intriguing, right? So it's anyway, that's kind of how I felt about going into the flick. And we can get into the plot points and certain things too, but as we go. But I think just off the hop, you got to have someone strong carrying the film.
Yeah.
And I think she deserves all the credit in the world and all the praise that she's getting right now, because I think it's a super challenging thing. This isn't, and again, I don't know. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? It's like, do you really have to hit it out of the park to make a great Predator movie or a good Predator movie? Like the bar's pretty low past the original. I'm not saying I don't like Predator 2 or Predators. I like those movies, but like they are not on the same level, obviously. And I'm not saying this movie is, but it's just a valiant attempt to make something solid. And I think that's all I want from movies nowadays. It's like, how can we make a movie that's like tells a pretty good story, doesn't overcomplicate things, gives the audience a character they can kind of root for, entertain you, but also but not just fluff in whatever. There's a couple of sequences in this movie that I thought were really, really well done. I wish they had done them a little bit differently, but they do play into how the movie progresses, and I think they were good, and it didn't try and oversell the Predator. It didn't try and oversell what it was trying to do, and I think that deserves a lot of credit. I mean, keep it simple, stupid is like sometimes less is more. Like all those cliches, they work, especially with a film like this. You don't need to overstuff it. I thought it was pretty streamlined, and the filmmakers should get all the credit in the world for making this happen, because it's exciting. It's why we're talking about it, right? I mean, if this movie sucked,
yeah. Well, we might still be talking about it, but the show would be very different.
Yeah, we might still be talking about it, but I mean, is there any? I mean, I think if this movie had sucked, I think that's the end of the Predator movie. I just don't know who. I mean, they've tried to reboot this thing so many times. I think they've done it with the wrong people, and I think that this time they might have hit on something. I'll get to that, why I think that later, but I think they might have hit on something that curiously, optimistically cool, if I can put it that way.
That last comment you're hovering over, Rob, it's the other way around.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's in the making of documentary on that special edition. Arnold got Carl Weathers into smoking cigars.
Oh, very good. That's what it is. Carl got Arnold hooked on the smoking. Long live the stogie. Thank you, Andrew.
Apparently he goes over and he sees Arnold. Arnold's like, you want one?
Adam brings up another point, though. Does this give license to other franchises to explore different stories and get away from traditional follow-ups?
They should be.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think
if you want to build a universe, you need to play in it.
So throw up that spoiler thing, because I think we're going to get into specifics now. So let's throw up that spoiler thing, because let's talk about a couple things. So anyone who hasn't seen Prey, if you don't care about spoilers, we're going to be talking about spoilers. But if you do care about spoilers and you don't want anything ruined and have plans to watch the film soon, I'd suggest you tune out for this part, or maybe the rest of the show. But let's get on with it. Okay, so this is kind of ties in what I was saying, is that. That the concept of this film, Prey, like just to make kind of a stand. Again, I really do appreciate the fact that it's a standalone film.
Yeah,
you can make the argument that it's not because of the gun, the musket at the end of the film. Yeah. That obviously is a shout back to Predator 2, and obviously, like the Predator the Predator throws the gun at Danny Glover at the end of Predator 2. So he obtains that gun back somehow. Because obviously he Amber Midthunder obtains it in this film, so the Predator has to get it back, right? They have to get. That's what this is kind of this trade-off thing that they're doing. But I'm just not too sure.
One second, better. It's never specified what tribe gives it to Danny Glover, and what tribe this one is that gives it away. If you watch AVP, the original, they show you tribes.
Right, but
way back in the Aztecs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, but the Predator has the gun, right, and gives it back to say humans, right?
Gun.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's
then
supposed to be the same gun.
it's supposed to be the same gun, because they make a very specific point of showing you the date and the inscription on the musket.
All right.
Raphael Endolini, 1715. It says it right on there.
Okay, and that's what the other one said?
Yep.
Okay.
Now,
I couldn't remember that.
and sorry, I forgot her character's name in it, but I guess it's Naru in Prey. So again, I mean, but the cool thing about this is that they kind of made it a standalone film, and they're going to go back and I'm hoping if they make another movie, they can go and explore some other time period with some other characters, which isn't related. It doesn't need to be like this bloodline thing. It doesn't need to be, again, it doesn't need to be overcomplicated. It can simply be the fact that it's just humans fighting the Predators in a different time period. And like, I was talking to my buddy after we watched this movie, because we were just like, how crazy is it that it took them this long to kind of figure this out? Like, why couldn't you have a Predator in World War One? Why couldn't you have a Predator standoff in, like, you know, the War of 1812 or the War of Independence? Or like we were talking about, you know, potentially, like, what if you put it into, like, you know, had something into, like, the American Civil War, for instance, right? So, you know, have people trying to escape Southern slavery, and like, you know, had something happen like that. I like all these historical things that you could put this Predator into context with, could make some really, really interesting films.
Or the fan theory, or the fan wanted film they had was making it set in feudal Japan.
That's the next project that there's on my petition is feudal Japan.
So I mean, I think you've opened up this sort of doorway here, which is really, really cool, and you can kind of make these standalone movies that I think people will watch, even if they're on streaming now, because this one was successful, and really kind of like, you know, make this somewhat of a series of standalone films, as opposed to just like direct sequels. So I think that's going to be it'll be interesting to see what they do. But I think, you know, again, I think just compartmentalize it, don't overcomplicate it. Don't try and make it about, like, you know, the nuclear bomb, or, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just
look at that show. Remember that show, Deadliest Warrior, where they would put, like, ninjas versus Marines and stuff. They just need to look at that show and go, okay, Predator versus this one. Okay, Predator, now let's do this one.
Aliens. Ryan just put up here. I would like to reference back to Dutch as an appearance, as long as it's not ham-fisted.
They made one reference to Dutch in Predators.
Yeah, and in Predator 2.
And in Predator 2?
Yeah. But every single film so far, except for, I think, The Predator, Arnold has been offered a role. But the first one, they couldn't agree on a price. And then the second one, he had to bow out because he just was elected governor.
Yeah.
Or was
so that was in Predators. So the rumor on the street is that in Predators, when the ship comes down at the end and they have kind of that face off, and that one the King Predator or whatever comes out of the ship, apparently he was going to take his mask off and it was going to be Arnold, like it was going to be Dutch. And that was just going to be like that would be the ending of the film, which is like, I always loved that ending, because I was like, that's awesome. A little bit of maybe too much fan service, but still, like, I think it's crazy to me that, like, I was reading up some stuff on Predator 2, and apparently the original film, it was always supposed to be set in LA, but they were going to get Patrick Swayze as the cop, and then they would bring in, like, Dutch would be brought in again as, like, and they would team up to take on this new Predator in LA, which is like, that's a pretty awesome, like, I mean, I'd watch Arnold and Swayze duke it out with the Predator, right? Like
Roadhouse and Commando. Yeah, that'd be fun.
That'd be pretty good, right? So, but again, they couldn't agree on the price for Arnold to bring him back, and I think, and then of course that's kind of why that movie that didn't do so well. It's a bit of I think it has aged well with time, just because people understand, like, kind of what went into the production of it, and sort of like what they kind of brought to the table. It's definitely a cool movie. It's action everywhere.
Yeah, it's the Halloween 3 thing, where everybody hated it when it came out because it wasn't what they wanted. But over time, they're standing back and looking at it as a picture.
There's a lot of cool stuff in there. A lot of cool stuff in that movie that I think it gets credit for now. It kind of reminds me a lot of RoboCop 2 and even RoboCop 1, to be honest, where that's kind of what they were going for, and just blowing shit. There's a lot of guys just like wielding like Uzis and just like shooting like this. Like, they're not even aiming at anything. They're just shooting for just because they're crazy. So great. They had the same composer, right? Do the music, which was really, really awesome. And I think the movie works better now than it did when it came out in 1990. Of course, it's a movie made in 1990, which really means it was made in 89. And about LA in 1997, which is like this dystopian, like horrible, like gang-ridden, violent, crime-ridden version of LA that's only 7 years into the future. It's kind of like Demolition Man, right? When they were like, in 1999, LA is like just out of control. Like, it's so. But yeah, I mean, I think that. Yeah, I mean, so going back to that original point was like, can they do a bunch of other stories? I think they can do anything they want now. And I think that's kind of like, I mean, I was trying to think of like, you know, what if you did something like with like the Predator in like, you know, let's say like Afghanistan or like, even in the desert or something weird. Like I think you can create a lot of movies that are very, very compartmentalized on low budgets that still work with the backdrop of some other thing that's going on. I don't think it needs to be as complicated as some of the other movies that are coming out. And that's interesting to me because I like flicks like that. And I feel like a lot of flicks just need to get back to basics and just tell a simple story, but just make it good.
Yes, that's Martin's right on board. But he even said too, different situations or time is definitely a good avenue. It's like the Rogue One. Literally, don't try and focus on Star Wars. Focus on the universe.
Yeah.
You know,
you can continue a franchise with standalone stories as long as it's still in the same universe.
And as long as it's good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can have tie-ins as well, and you can have callbacks, and I don't mind that. It's
a little thread here and there is fine.
Yeah, I just don't need everything. I don't need a callback every 5 minutes. I don't need, and also like I don't need like the reason I'm okay with this musket gun in this movie is because it's a little bit. There's there's 3 things that I really, really liked about this movie. So one, I don't mind the musket because it's trying to tell a story, like you just said, right? It's something to equate the universe and kind of hold it together, but doesn't necessarily need to be like a direct sequel reference. It's just something to say, hey, this is how the Predators kind of hunt, right? Or this is kind of a show of respect, or something that means something to in the universe, right? So that's cool. Mm-hmm. The second thing I really liked was the fact that this is a minor thing, but the fact that the Predator sees all of the buffaloes skinned. And I was surprised that I didn't really see a lot of this online, but the fact that like a future Predator starts skinning humans and skins the humans alive in Predator 1 with Arnold, right? So that was an interesting thing to me because it was like almost like the Predator had picked that up from humans as opposed to like bringing it himself, right? So that's interesting. And Rob, just my third point was the fact that just the Predator in this movie and Prey, like his technology isn't as advanced. Like it's like he's still more advanced than humans as the Predators have been in every single film. But this was like, they're still a couple hundred years behind where they were in, like that timeline was kind of that timeline was respected. And I thought that was the best thing they did in this movie because it made me feel like it was believable to a certain, I was able to get rid of like so like this, the mask is kind of like bone. It's not necessarily made of other stuff. I mean, he's obviously got the arm, like knives or whatever you want to call those things. But he had the laser operation, but it shot kind of arrows. It didn't shoot like laser blasts. And I thought that was really cool. I think that was the best thing they did in this movie. It made me kind of like suspend my belief a little bit, just enough where I was like, oh, well, I don't necessarily know what this particular Predator's weaknesses or strengths are. I just know he's a big alien. He's going to kill a bunch of people for sure. But I don't know exactly how his technology works right now. And I thought that was really interesting. And that was the best thing they did about this movie because it made it neat and fresh and new. And also, if you watch Predator 2, because the Predator in Predator 2 is different than Predator 1, obviously. He's bigger, and that's where the idea came from, like the tribes of predators and different lineages and all that stuff in the comics and just in fan theories and that sort of stuff too. So those 3 things I thought were the things that really kind of like drove, like made the story whole. And then obviously the Predator was really cool to look at. Obviously he always is. And then obviously the actress like Amber being the lead role was good too. So they had a lot of components that like worked for me. And the other stuff around, we'll get into that as well. But yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
Martin says here, I'd be very curious to see what a futuristic Predator would look like. Something from the 22nd century.
But I think they try to do that in the Predator, right?
That's where they're going, yes.
Well, it's a lead up because it still happens now. But like Martin said, let's jump to the 22nd century and let's see how far advanced they are than our advancements.
I feel that's too complicated though. Like I want to see that, but I feel like in my brain I want to see that, but in my heart and in my gut, I know that they would try that and they would fuck it up.
Adam's got a much better idea. He says maybe Escape from LA would have been better if it had a Predator. Would have been a neat mashup.
I don't know if anything saves Escape from LA.
Yeah. All right,
I'm gonna get shit for that comment, but I don't care. I've watched that movie and yeah. So I mean, this is like I didn't mind Predators either. I thought this was one of these things where they were like, okay, so we're gonna make a direct sequel to the first movie and ignore the second movie. I don't know if you can do that. I think
a direct sequel, but a movie that's further down the timeline.
Yeah, because to me, this is almost the first standalone because it literally has no connection to 1 or 2,
except for one vague mention of Dutch.
Yeah, and other than that, it's people being captured and dropped on a planet.
Yeah, and it's the only one that doesn't. It's the only one that doesn't take place on Earth.
Yep.
Except for the opening of Alien AVP, which we're not including in this, but AVP Requiem is the only one that shows the Predator homeworld.
So,
I think like I will say this as well. If you're gonna try and reboot a franchise, and you're gonna do it in this way, that's kind of stripped back and you know they've learned from their mistakes. It seems like they've learned from the mistakes of the Predator. And they really kind of not lean into, but they respected the Predator 2, like a little bit, right, with the gun tie-in, and also this sort of like it doesn't get rid of Predators either. So you've kind of like they've sort of solidified this franchise a little bit. Like I'm not going to say it's perfect or it's seamless or whatever, but like we were saying, like the universe, like you can explore that world, you can explore that universe now. It doesn't necessarily need to be like really, really tied together, but there's a thread that carries through those 4 films now, which I think is interesting, and it makes them, I think, a bit more interesting to watch. But the Predator, like the 4th movie, I'll never watch that movie again. I hated that movie so much. I hated that movie.
Don't worry, I'll watch it for you.
I hated everything about it, and it blew my mind that I was just like, is this a joke? Like, I mean, it's just like I couldn't.
I don't want to argue, so we're just going to
all right.
agree. Okay, I will watch it in your stead. Okay, I will take that vote for you.
I'd say Prey and Predators are the only 2 of them that also play with the title, because Prey they go from the Predator title to Prey, but Predators is also a double meaning because there's 4 Predators in the movie, but the people they capture are Predators in their own right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think with that one, that's the thing I have the hardest time with this movie. If you are dropped as part of people you don't know on a planet where this giant thing wants to kill you and all that, are you actively going to go out and try and kill those other people? Or are you going to try and focus on staying alive?
Well, it's like, I mean, again, I think some of the... So I was reading up on Predator 2, as I mentioned before, and like Danny Glover said that was like one of the few movies that he's made that made him feel superhuman. And he's like, so this is hilarious. He goes, I was like 42. I think he says I think this is on the Wikipedia page. He said he was 42, 43. He was in the best shape of his life. He's like running on the beach every morning, like, lifting weights, like in the gym. Like he was like, and he's like pretty good. But like Danny Glover is like that guy that always looks old. And I mean that with all due respect, Mr. Glover. Like, I've said hi to the guy before, but I just,
one of our earliest introductions, he says, "I'm getting too old for this shit."
Yeah, I mean, he's the aging cop
for 30 years.
Yeah, he's the aging cop that's reliable and is competent for sure. But he's not necessarily an action star. I think he's somewhat miscast in Predator 2. Although I still like the movie now, but I think coming out of the gates, he's no comparison to Arnold or even Carl Weathers, right? As an action star. So, and of course they tried to make Adrian Brody the action star in Predators. And I also thought he was miscast in that role. Like, yeah, I love that gun too, by the way. Like it's just a giant ripping gun with this massive, yeah. So I mean, I think with that stuff, like I thought Adrian Brody was good, but I thought he was just miscast. It's like he's the guy that got the role because somebody else wasn't available or something. And I thought like And even in the Predator, I was just like, I don't buy these guys, man. All I want is like military team, or I want action star, or at least that's what I thought I wanted, and I'll still take that. But this movie did like it went the opposite way of what everyone's expectations were. They went with someone like a character that was way far away from Arnold, maybe as far as you could get from Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Because the shoes are so big to fill that there's no point in even trying to do that. And so they went the complete opposite direction, but cast properly. And that, I think, is a big thing.
Dealing with a culture that has no firepower.
Yeah.
Well, it creates stakes, right? It creates stakes. Yeah. Like, I mean, I did think that there was some opportunity. So one of the scenes I really liked was when she gets stuck in the when Naru gets stuck in the swamp, and she has to practice like throwing the axe on the rope to get out. I thought they should have done that a little bit differently. I thought that scene should still have happened, but I felt like that's how she would have like maybe thought about like using it as a weapon. Like it's a tool to use, but also to use it. So I liked all that stuff. I thought it created like she learns things. She becomes more adaptable. She becomes more of an expert with this weapon that she's kind of made, even though it's like, it pushes the boundaries of believability, but still like, I was like, okay, that's cool. But again, I didn't, it's not like they put someone in this role that I was just like, no, this is not the person for this role. Right. So I thought she was perfectly cast. And I think that's important in movies today, because I think that, sometimes people aren't, and especially in this franchise, it feels weird that they have gone certain directions, but it does make sense when you find out the production issues and all that stuff. But ultimately, like, that matters. Now, I thought there was an opportunity here where, so Rob, you mentioned off the top, like whether or not she would be able to go into battle and that sort of stuff. Like if the tribe would have allowed her to do that, just from a historical point of view, who knows, but probably not, but who knows. But I did think that there was an opportunity here where the Predator should have maybe come down through and maybe slaughtered a bunch of the warriors in the tribe, forcing her to kind of be in that position. They kind of do that, but not necessarily, not really. But I mean, a small gripe. I thought most of the stuff was pretty well done, and I thought that at the end I gave a shit about what was happening at the end.
Yeah,
I was like I don't really know how this is going to play out. Did I like the very end? I don't know. I mean, I'm maybe a bit of a mixed bag, but definitely not like I didn't hate it. I wasn't like I was like, this is horrible. What an awful ending. I was just like, okay, they went that direction. And whenever you're writing a script or you're trying to figure out kind of how to end that movie, maybe they filmed a couple different endings. Who knows? But they went with the one that just felt the most correct in it with everything else that came before it. And this is kind of the concise story that they're going to tell. And this is the way they want it. So I trust the filmmakers to do that. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I think a lot of people thought this movie was going to suck. I didn't meet anyone that was just like, I can't wait to see that. That's going to be awesome. I was just like, I think everyone was just like, we'll see.
It goes back to that stigma of streaming, I think. Oh yeah. If they didn't think it would work in the theater,
I think it's I don't know. I think some of it's that. I think it's just the overload of Disney, Star Wars / Marvel / whatever slash everything to make a decent flick that doesn't feel like someone's used the term ham-fisted earlier. It doesn't feel like this just glob of whatever, and is like. And then at the end, and also as well, like always trying to sell you the next thing. Like, don't worry about what you just watched. Think about the thing that's coming. And it's like, we were talking about this in the last episode, right? I just want something that I'm like, awesome. I really like that experience. I liked it as much that I would maybe like another experience later on, just like that, as another sequel, but only if this experience is contained and only if this experience is good. And it not as opposed to just getting so ahead of themselves, these studios saying, well, we're going to make 10 different movies and it's a new universe. And it's like, I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. Like, we talked about this last time, and sorry, and then I'll shut up just for a second. but like Game of Thrones, like Game of Thrones is a classic example where it's like you got 7 seasons, right? And 6 of those seasons were fucking awesome, and you couldn't stop watching the show. And everyone, if you weren't watching the show, guess what? You were watching it now. After every season came out, it got better and crazier and whatever until the last season. And the last season came out, and nobody gives a shit about that show anymore. So it's like that's the thing where it's like you can't stop. You gotta stop selling. You just gotta make sure that the story makes sense. That's got a beginning and a middle and an ending. And like it's just like, well, okay, what's this comment? Let's see. Okay.
A lot of the YouTube critics wanted to dunk on it for a female lead because of Rey from Star Wars and Captain Marvel, but the script and subtle acting won them over. Because she was incredible in that work. You could physically see her learning through that whole movie how to beat him at the end.
Oh, with the blood cooling herb or whatever it is.
Exactly.
You can't see him.
The entire film, every experience she had, every hiccup she had, was her learning something else that all came together for her to win.
I have a way to connect it to Predator 2, by the way. I bet you in a subsequent Predator film, she gives the gun back to the Predators, because the Predators in a few of the movies have shown respect to the humans that put up the biggest fight. Predator 2, they give him the gun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say it anyway. Alien versus Predator.
Yep, you can say it.
He gives her like a little mark of honor.
That's a try mark.
Yeah. And not so much Predators. They just kind of agree to work together against the bigger 3 Predators and the Predator, where they go against the Super Predator or whatever.
Yeah.
So she could realistically be approached by them saying like, oh, well, you did a good job. And they give something to her and she gives the gun to them.
I don't understand this one. Ryan says, I love the progression from snake to wolf to bear to human, learning the earthen hierarchy.
The Predator in the film went through that arc. You watched him kill a snake.
He does kill a snake.
And
Does
then
he kill a wolf?
he killed him in that order.
Yeah, because remember the wolf comes along that hits him on the leg and backs off, and he starts to attack him, so he ends up killing the wolf.
Okay.
I do have to say, sorry, go ahead, James.
Is that where he has the infrared of the animal when you see kind of like the skull? Isn't it a dog? I thought it was a dog.
Oh well, a coyote maybe even too. I don't know.
He polishes up the skull and like keeps it as a trophy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, is that what you mean? Yeah, that's the one.
I will say my biggest gripe with this movie, and this is a good comment to tie it into, is too many CGI animals. I understand why they had to go that route, because obviously a CGI animal costs a lot less to create. You don't have to worry about paying experts to come in and stuff like that. Also better for the animals too. I get it. But
a CGI animal, yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel bad about it. But I wish there was some more practical stuff in there. And the reason I say that is because there's a real dog there, and I also have a personal hatred against CGI deer. Like, I like regular deer, but CGI deer is just it's a personal hatred of mine in movies, because I just feel like they look so weird and so fake, right?
You're there to watch a movie, not play buck hunter.
Yeah. And I know people are going to say, well, the Predator's not real. Like, why? And it's like, yeah, but it just takes me out of the film if it looks a little bit too computery. Then it takes me out of the film, right? Right. There's still a practical thing.
Yeah.
And just like anyway, I was like, oh, and it was like every animal was kind of like that except the dog, right? The dog was.
Well, and apparently the dog wasn't supposed to be on screen as much as it was, but it was doing so well that they just ran with it.
Yeah. But the bear kill was pretty awesome.
Got extra lines.
Yeah.
And then also as well, like that's like the bear kill with the Predator reveal with all the blood dripping over him, like, I thought was awesome. But they had kind of already shown the Predator in the movie, and I thought they should have held off on that, and they should have shown him this should have been the first cool. Showing the reveal of him, because it was really cool. I also thought my only other criticism was I did feel like I did feel like the characters should have been a bit more terrified of this thing, otherworldly, and I'm surprised they didn't go into the idea that it was a demon or something that was from, something like that to tie into, any sort of folklore, any sort of, potentially, indigenous or Aboriginal, like lore or something like that. Like, I don't know how you would do that. I don't know if you could, right? I have no idea. I'm just surprised that it is like the characters kind of seem like it's something that we need to kill. Okay. But I also would be terrified if I saw that now.
You have to remember, these people think thunder and lightning was from a god. A tornado is from a god. So they're used to being scared of gods trying to kill them.
That's true. Yeah, maybe.
They're just used to everything trying to kill them.
Now, I agree with you, though. They probably should have made some reference going, oh, no, Beelzebub is trying to kill us now or something like that. You're right. It would have been referred to as some kind of deity.
Yes. And then just from a filmmaking point of view, there's a couple sequences where when she's captured by the French trappers or French explorers or whatever you want, French, whomever those guys are, the bad guys of the film, obviously. I thought that there was just some like with the language stuff. I was surprised they didn't really explore that too more. Like he would, like they would flip. Like he would. There's one scene where Naru's like trapped. She's in the cage and she's taken captive, and then the French guy just communicates with her he's just able to communicate with her. And I'm like, I don't know if that would happen. Like, I'm surprised they didn't use more subtitles of the actual language. They used some of it at the start for sure, but I'm surprised they didn't lean into that. And maybe it was just a case of, again, I think that's just a case of like, how do we make this, how do we take this film and make it really digestible for a streaming audience? And, obviously there's a lot of people out there like, well, if it's got subtitles, I'm not going to watch it. But
yeah,
I watch everything with captions on anymore, but I'm also getting old.
See, I think the only movie I've ever seen that really tries to stay true, and this is going to sound so weird coming from me, to cultural language differences is Star Trek VI. And that's because during the trial, they start the trial in Klingon and English and the translators, but you see that one spot where he zooms in on Christopher Plummer, and then all of a sudden it flips to English and it starts backing out.
Oh, they did that. They did a quick Hunt for Red October.
Hunt for October did it too. That's right.
And
13th Warrior did a transition.
Yeah.
Where Antonio Banderas listened to them because he tells them, "How did you learn a language?" I listen, and it's just them. He's watching them.
Valkyrie does it where the German, you hear English in the back faint and German's heavy, and then the German language fades out and English comes in, and then everyone speaks English the rest of the movie.
See, that's cool though that they're trying to maintain it while still make it palpable for the normal watcher. Because I don't want to sit there and watch Star Trek VI in subtitle. That's just not how I'm going to do it.
But again, I mean, I think a lot of that is budgetary restrictions too. So it's
And they did make a big deal about saying that this one would be released with a Comanche language track.
Yes.
And it does. I watched like 5 minutes of it just to watch it. I can't watch the whole movie.
Yeah, I got to go back and watch that. I heard that too, and I thought that would be that's super interesting. So I'm also wondering if that's how different the movie is with that. So it's a dub track, or is it a
Yeah.
It's dubbed Comanche because they're speaking English. Like you can see their lips move in English, but it's all in Comanche. It's pretty cool. So, like I said, after 5 minutes, though, I had to shut it off because it's just like.
It's like.
Well, it's a dubbed. Yeah, I mean, dubbing is always a weird. It's a bit of an odd thing because when it doesn't line up, right? But that's interesting though. I mean, well done. I mean, props to the filmmakers. I mean, I don't know what I would give this as a star rating. I don't know if I can go. I don't think I can go 4 out of 5, but I mean, I know I rate a lot of stuff 3.5 out of 5, but I just feel that 3.5 out of 5 is a valiant effort. And 4, I mean, if I was really generous, I guess so, but I do feel, this kind of levels the playing field in Predator a little bit. Like I feel like Predator 1 is way up. I don't think anything's ever going to touch it just because of when it was made and whatnot. But I think that this is like Predator 2, Prey, Predators. Like you could make the argument of how you would put those in as which one is your favorite, but kind of like personal opinion. Like I don't think, no, not that one, but and then there's that one. There's that other one that's way below. But I feel it now. You've got a little bit of a series. Like if you knew someone who'd never seen this series, like you've got a kid, right? That's like, like 12, 13, whatever, don't take my word for it, but who's like, hey, you want to see something cool, man? Like check out these flicks. You could kind of watch them in a sequence, or well, maybe not 12, but let's say 16. I don't know, whatever. But you could watch them in a sequence where we're like, oh, cool, like that sort of that really ties together, and it's an interesting kind of world.
Think you can get him by that one though? I don't know. It's just saying.
Yeah, you can't get that one. You can't that. I don't know. I draw the line Predator dogs.
I think it is cool that they did Prey with a Comanche track because, generally speaking, how much of the population speaks Comanche that it screams for a Comanche dubbed version, but it's true to the film.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's neat. Like, I mean, that's what when people are talking about like representation in film, and it just like this is part of it. I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm not saying this is the greatest thing ever to be put out and corrects a whole bunch of stuff, but this is sort of like this is a step, right? That kind of includes more people and is respectful of sort of like the historical, accuracies and they can take historical liberties with it, because every film that's ever been made before this film has taken historical, like has taken liberties with history, right? So
next thing you're gonna tell me Braveheart, they didn't have kilts back then.
Yeah. Like, so, I mean, I think, I mean, I can't really say enough good things about it. I mean, if you haven't seen the flick, not that you need to now, because we've talked about it for an hour, but I mean, check it out. I'm going to go back and watch it again for sure. And I'm going to check out that audio track, because it's a neat thing. But I mean, I always talk about, like, especially because I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, right? So the action movies were like my bread and butter. And because they were the movies that you weren't like, everyone could watch Star Wars and Star Trek, but when you got a little bit older, like the action films were the films that you weren't really supposed to watch. Like, you weren't supposed to watch RoboCop or like Terminator, Predator,
the action flicks and the police academies, the
Porkies.
Yeah. So all the shit your parents didn't want you to watch, like that's what you wanted to get into, or all the shit your moms didn't want you to watch. So, but I mean, for the most part, like, I think that, I always say this to people, I go, yeah, but in the 90s, like they were trying to do some stuff that made sense. Like, I think, you go from Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's the greatest action star maybe of all time, but you still go with Danny Glover in the sequel. You've got a strong black character in the main lead. And Danny Glover was killing it in the Lethal Weapon movies too. Like, he was awesome, right? Like, look at that guy. Right. He's great. And he's had a great career of playing, mostly cops, I think, but he's had a pretty good, I mean, this was still kind of early on in his career somewhat, where he had achieved sort of that level of fame. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like, and there's, the cop in it as well is, Hispanic actress, and she's cast as a really strong, she beats up Bill Paxton. Obviously, shout out to Bill Paxton. Awesome that he's in Predator 2. Sorry, I'm talking about Predator 2, but like, there's just, they were trying to kind of do some stuff in the 90s. I think that people look back on it now and they say, well, they didn't do it very well. I'm like, yeah, because they didn't know what they were doing. Like, they were just trying to make like something different than what happened in the 80s, right? Nobody wanted to remake what happened in the 80s, but this franchise is an interesting one now, because I think that they've sort of gotten back on track, and we'll see what happens if there is a sequel or another sequel. I think this movie and the success of this online screams that another one will probably be made for streaming.
And I think they have the perfect action star right there.
Adrian Brody?
Yeah.
I like Adrian Brody. I don't mind Adrian Brody. I just think you do mind him.
I thought it was the first time he was a badass. I saw him as a badass. He was a badass in that movie.
No.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed that movie, and I enjoyed his.
I love it.
I had fun with it. It was just
it's one of the few that's profitable.
It's like with Amber, I believed her character, and unfortunately, when Adrian was giving these gruff lines, I couldn't buy it from him. I don't know if it's just the look, but I still watch the movie. I still like the movie. I just didn't buy him as that character.
It was just that miscasting, right? I mean, like, who would you get in that role? And again, it's sort of like what's crazy to me is I think one of the guys perfectly suited for a lot of roles that Arnold left behind is The Rock, but I understand why he didn't he didn't do those roles because he didn't want to be like just copying what Arnold did. But I wish he had, because I feel like if you put The Rock, especially where he was in his career in Predators, I think you have a better movie. I think there was a lot of talk that The Rock was going to be in the Terminator franchise. I think he would have had a better franchise, some better franchise installments of The Rock in that. But I get it. I understand. But who else would you cast? I mean, who else would you cast if you didn't have Danny Glover? Who would you cast? If you didn't have Adrian Brody, who would you cast?
I think I see some recastings in our future.
Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. Real quick, Ryan said, I would like to see a mini-series about the Predator homeworld. The Dark Horse comics were good. They just need time to let it develop.
Too much money to make that happen. It's just
Right.
it's too much cash to make it happen.
Why
Unfortunately.
Krypton is dead, you know? One last thing about Predators. Introduced a far superior, I think, Predator dog. Those things then were vicious, you know? Matt's got a good thing. Jean-Claude Van Damme. That's who we should cast.
Well, that was the original Predator.
He was the original Predator, and then he quit.
Predator versus the Expendables.
Ooh. Well, that's just Predator.
I could take. I mean, I don't know who I would take. Like, I mean, I think. But again, I think like they've opened this up. You don't have to have another Arnold now.
No, you don't. Tom
but-
Hardy is a no-brainer. Come on.
Next will be Predator versus kids.
The kids from Thor, Love and Thunder that were trapped in that.
Oh yeah, that were blessed.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see. Yeah, I mean, they're not going to get anyone like, I don't think, like Christian Bale, for instance. But you could see an actor like that. Maybe Tom Hardy would be cool. But even like Charlize Theron, like she'd be a cool. I mean that's a thing now, right? So she was in, what was that movie that was on Netflix? That's a great example of like kind of like a. What's that?
The Old Guard.
The Old Guard, which I was like, this is kind of feels like they got the talent, they got the names, they got the budget, but some reason the story just kind of just fizzles out. Like, what was that?
because he's bad mouthing Charlize.
No, but I love Charlize. So like, I mean, I want to see her. I want to see her in I want to see her in like a Predator film or a Prey film or a Prey sequel.
Atomic Blonde shows what she could do.
Atomic Blonde, best movie of the year that I saw. Amazing movie.
Yeah, that was.
She's a badass, and she puts in the work, and she's likable. She's got charisma, and she's tough and believably tough. I just
can't see her doing another big franchise like this. No, now that she's tagged on to the continue the Furiosa Mad Max world.
Well, she's not though. She's not in the new Mad Max movie. I don't think she's going back.
Oh, is it total prequel?
It's Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize it was total prequel.
Yeah.
I thought it was a mishmash.
No.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
my mistake.
But she is in the MCU now, so.
Yes, there's that.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I don't want to say, I just want to expand on that, saying like I don't believe that she's like, I don't like certain actresses, like it's not limited to actresses. Like I'm just talking about Adrian Brody. Like I don't believe Adrian Brody is a badass in Predators. He looks like that guy. That guy looks like he works at a bank, man. Like he's not like, yeah, he's got a gun on, but take that gun away and put him in a tie. He looks like he's just not cast like in the way. He does a serviceable job in the role, right? Because he's doing his job. So that's great, but he doesn't look like this guy that I would be like, wow, stay away from that guy, man. That guy's that guy could beat you down, right? It's like they needed someone else in that role, and I just don't know.
See, Mahershala Ali, is that how you say his name?
Mahershala Ali, yeah.
Yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah, I forgot he was in that, eh?
Yeah.
That must have been one of his first films. Two-time Academy Award winner in that movie. And Adrian Brody had won, I think, for the Pianist, right? Yeah, he had already won, I think. Yeah, that's a lot of Topher Grace is in that movie. Danny Trejo.
I pronounced it right.
So let me get this straight. The guy wins an Oscar for The Pianist, and you're thinking action flick.
Yeah. Is that true? That must, or maybe he filmed it the same. Maybe he filmed this movie before he won.
Robert Rodriguez.
Maybe.
I love watching movies. Like I love watching. That's a good call. That's a good call.
Yeah,
Momoa just went on record saying that he was super bummed out about the Conan movie and that it wasn't the movie he said he was promised that he was make and all this
I
shit.
heard that.
I liked it.
See, I'm old school, like not quite Baywatch, Jason Momoa, but Stargate Atlantis. His Ronin was an amazing character.
I never watched any of that. I
No.
never got into the Stargate verse.
Such a cool character.
But Momoa, yeah, I take Momoa. Would Momoa have to cut his hair though to be in a Predator movie?
No, you can't do that. That's just wrong.
We'll see. I mean, I kind of liked. I mean, I don't know. Like Fassbender would be a better choice than Adrian Brody, but he wasn't around then, so.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
I take
Before I forget, or James, actually, no, because you brought it up earlier. Go ahead with the Stranger Things connection.
Oh yeah. I want to hear this.
Yeah, when they find the dog tags in the village that they're trying to liberate, I think in the first Predator movie, and the guy in the helicopter, wasn't it supposed to be Jim Hopper?
Yes. A character that was referenced between Arnold and Carl Weathers earlier in the flick. He was an old friend of theirs. That's who they were going to look for because he was known for getting out of sticky situations.
Yeah. And Stranger Things recently mentioned with the character Jim Hopper that he was in the military and escapes out of a Russian prison. And, well, which has nothing to do with the Predator movies, but it's Jim Hopper in the 80s.
The Duffer Brothers have confirmed that Jim Hopper in Stranger Things is an homage to the character from Predator.
That you never see, but is always referenced.
He was referenced. So, but if you take that by those standards, Jim Hopper is in the Predator universe. So Stranger Things is connected to the Predator universe.
Okay, but you have to remember, Jason also likes this
I didn't come up with the theory. I'm just telling you this is what's.
What did you guys think of the callback to the Jesse Ventura line? In Prey? She actually says it.
Yeah,
she does.
Yeah, she says if it bleeds, we can kill it.
No, it's her brother. Her brother says it.
Was it
in
brother?
the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bit. Yeah, I thought it was a bit of an eye roll for me. I thought it was a bit cheesy. I thought that they should have said something like that, but just differently, because it just felt like, felt like, so it almost felt out of place, like it was jammed in there somehow. Like, we got to have this guy say this line at this moment in time, right?
The best callback line is in here. When they're on the bus and it's getting blown up and they look over and there's motorcycles and he says, "Quick, get to the choppers."
Yeah.
That's the best callback line.
Like, what kind of movie? Nice.
This is Momoa as Ronin. So yeah, you don't have to cut his hair.
Yeah, fair enough.
He'll blend in with them.
That's right. You won't know if it's him or a Predator.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that yeah, I don't know. It's also crazy this franchise is like 35 years old too, right? Like, right. I mean, I think that's, I mean, and that's they just now figured out kind of how to get some more gas out of it. So that's interesting, because Predators, I think, was put out in like 2011 or something like that. It's like a 15-year-old film.
There was a long stretch in the Predator franchise.
Yeah, Predators was 2010, and then The Predator was 2018.
I gotta say, like that line, like if it bleeds, we can kill it. Like again, I was like, I thought it was a bit cheesy, but the trade-off is that they treated the whole film serious. They took it seriously, and they took the character seriously, and not everyone was trying to make a joke. There's a really great scene where Naru is in like Amber Midthunder's she's in one of the huts with I think it's her grandmother, and her grandmother is blending up the herbs, and she says something like I can't remember the exact line of dialogue, but it's so good, because she's talking about wanting to hunt and wanting to like hunt with the rest of the tribe, and her grandmother says it's not about hunting, it's about survival. And I was like, I thought that line was the best line in the movie, because it just tilted everything to the point where it was like, you don't necessarily need to beat You just need to survive. You got to think about survival. You can't be thinking about just winning, or you can't think about yourself. You got to be thinking about other things, and that's what's most important. Like, that's what matters. And I thought that's the line of the dialogue. That line of dialogue I thought was expertly put into that movie in a spot where I thought it really made sense and really created like again, little nuances where you could see Naru hear that dialogue and think about it and process it and then use that later. And I thought that's the stuff that I don't think you see in movies a lot nowadays. Not in movies like this, right?
No, that is true. No, I like how they put it together. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you said, it's given it some steam, so there will probably be another one come out.
Yes,
with Wesley Snipes.
Yes.
I take a Snipes Predator movie. Sure.
Predator versus Blade. I think we can do it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Benner, for being on. This is always a blast having you here.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
Now we're going to have to pick some Predator movies to recast.
I think so.
You going to make it?
Yep.
All right, then. For another week at the Movie Madhouse, I'm Rob.
I'm James.
I'm Jason.
I'm Benner. Platform Distro. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
I say shut up! It's a madhouse!